Let's talk about Yuji's binding vow against Sukuna, but if you haven't finished the JJK manga, big ol' spoilers. Alright, first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to Sylv for inspiring this video today. Thank you so much for the support, man. And y'all can pause to read the entire context of the question here, but essentially it's about Yuji's binding vow in his fight with Sukuna, the one where he was dismantling the barrier between Sukuna and Megumi's soul. I believe that to be a binding vow, and I mentioned it in a video I put out earlier this week talking about Yuji's full potential. Well, Sylv says that he thinks that maybe a binding vow isn't necessary because Yuji has the ability to perceive the soul. So maybe he's just doing that naturally, no binding vow required. So here is the relevant page just for full context. And as you can see, Sukuna is thinking to himself as he's getting pummeled by Yuji's soul dismantles here. And he says he's selectively choosing the targets of his technique. He's firing dismantle after dismantle directly at the barrier between mine and Megumi's souls. He's made a binding vow to make sure his strikes are more effective at tearing my soul from this body. So Sylv's perspective here is that maybe Sukuna is just incorrect. And I think the POV he's coming from is that this would just be Sukuna looking down on Yuji, thinking that there was no way he could do something like this without a binding vow. And in a vacuum, I could get behind that line of thinking, but I do ultimately disagree because I think Sukuna is just correct in his analysis here, and it's for a couple of reasons. The first is that he's the king of curses, right? This man is an absolute genius of the highest order when it comes to jujutsu, and so I think his insight and analysis would be pretty spot on for something like this. But even aside from that, Sukuna knows full and well that Yuji can see the contours of the soul, so him having that ability wouldn't be a surprise for Sukuna, and if that is something that you were just capable of without a binding vow, Sukuna would have taken that into account. And he knows that not only because he shared a body with Yuji and so just kind of saw and experienced everything Yuji did, but he also has that same ability thanks to sharing a body with Yuji. So I just feel like Sukuna would be well aware of all the parameters here, and if he thinks a binding vow is at play, I'm going to lean on his insight. And also narratively, I think this is an interesting and probably intentional parallel from Gege, because we have Sukuna who has been using binding vow after binding vow during this fight, again, just showcasing his excellence with jujutsu. And here we have Yuji newly awakened with the shrine technique, showing that he is capable of the same thing. And then also Sylv had another question of, do you think blood manipulation could be used similarly to the 10 shadows as far as hiding in a pool of blood or something? And no, I never had that idea, but that would be metal. Like, that would be so cool if you could like kind of teleport around through blood. And honestly, I don't think that's something it's capable of, but that would be so cool.